company has made an enormous change. Because we have an entire chapter dedicated to sustainability, and sustainability is no more just something said because it's not a topic required by stakeholders, but is a proper business strategy. In fact, they made a strategy that follows the UN SDGs that can be divided in three main topics, which is getting to net zero by 2050, caring for our planet, and improving people's lives. We can also see that they wanted to change from an international oil company to an integrated energy company, so it means that their strategy is really clear now, and it's really clear also in their annual report. When we talk about materiality, we say that GRI standards require also okay, sorry. About materiality, we have to say about materiality that every company must indicate some index and they must report all the topics that interest the company and its stakeholders as well. But we see that it's mentioned about materiality in 2010, as well, of course, as 2020. But in 2020, the report presents more materiality topics, so that are more explicit and provide more information about each topic. While we'll talk about completeness, the GRI standards require that to talk about this argument we should consider the material topic covered, the topic boundaries, and time. This means that materiality topics covered means it means the overview that the company has to its stakeholders. The boundaries is how these topics influence the company and how the company interacts with these influences. And time means how during the year how these influences, these topics has been related to the company. Of course, 2020 is more complete compared to 2010 reporting, because there are more detail given by boundaries and all the time report. Because we could say, as said before, in 2010 there were a lot of omissions and not visions about the future, but only they used to talk only about management and the oil spill. While in 2020 we could see great improvements, and so about vision of the future of sustainability. So that's it. And in conclusion, we can see that 2010 report was mainly focused on the management and the oil spill disaster, and we could see that in stakeholder inclusiveness, they were, even if not explicitly, they were a lot involved, all the stakeholders. Whilst for sustainability reporting, materiality and completeness, there were many lacks. On the other hand, the 2020 report on the closely adhered to those 4 principles, and they were considered in an in-depth manner. So this means that GRI has highly influenced the way the company has developed their annual report and sustainability report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Because you guys indicated that the 2010 was missing many facts and so forth. However, it seems to me that you wrote that report was a GRI A+, which is the highest rating they could do. Yes. So, in what terms did the company improve so much in 2020 to disclose their information, given it seems it was.
Well, I think because this is because they in that year the GRI had different frameworks and a bit different and also poorer, I think, respect now that they have improved a lot.
So you say that they haven't reached the indicators.
They followed the indicators of that time. That during the time has changed, and so for that period they were complete.
I understand. Okay. Okay, guys, number 4.
Yes.
Fonola nova.
No.
Scusa.
No.
Scusa. Cosco, la Mesi, Lorenza e Macaione.
No.
You are
I have two presenters, but one will be online and she will manage the presentation. So I need to.
Okay. So if she's managing the presentation, we need to make her a co-chair. What's her name?
Carla.
Carla. Allora, partecipanti. This is Carla.
Yes.
Okay. Hello Carla, good morning. Now, one moment, Carla Lamesi, questa qua, 3 puntini, vediamo, imposta come relatore, cambia. Now, Carla, you should be able to present. Would you like to try?
Yes.
You can share your screen.
1 second.
Sì.
Okay, the presentation mode, Carla. Okay.
Is it visible?
Yes. Is it okay for everyone? Like this? Okay. Hello, everyone. Our group number is 4, and we are Tatiana, Ayla, Carla, Daniel, and Giuseppe. Today, 2 of us are going to present. We decided that it should be fair to have 1 presenter online and 1 offline due to the specific situation. So here's the outline of our presentation. Yes, next slide. And I would like to start from the organization itself. The subject of our analysis is IR of Hitachi, which is a Japanese multinational corporation which employs more than 350,000 people worldwide. And it contributes to a sustainable society by dividing innovation through data and technology as the social innovation business. With some of the social innovation projects, Hitachi directly aims to address global challenges that also correspond to its SDGs. A few years ago, Hitachi received the highest scores in the field of climate change and water security. It was also rewarded for excellence in integrated reporting for its report in 2020. Next slide, please. And Hitachi resolves the issues faced by customers and society through across 6 domains: IT, energy, industry, mobility, automotive, and smart life, through unique and innovation solution called Lumada. It's a kind of AI developed by Hitachi, and it's really interesting. And if we had more time, I would share this video with you. Next slide. Yes, the main research question of our analysis is how has Hitachi intention for achieving SDGs changed from 2016 IR report to the latest one published in 2021, considering also the factors which cause to these discrepancies. So, Carla, it's your turn.
So I will move right away into the methodology before we get to the more interesting part of our analysis. So what we basically did, we chose the 2021 integrated report by Hitachi, which won the award, to see what's so special about it. It's compared to the first integrated report ever published by the company to see what has changed over the years. To get a clearer picture, we also consulted other journals and articles and other resources so we could critically assess the things that we found interesting. And in the end, we also conducted a small numerical analysis, searching for some keywords related to some of the SDGs within the reports to see how the prevalence of these keywords changed over the years. So on to the qualitative analysis. The general picture that we have seen in the report of 2016 was that they were very focused on financial KPIs, on growth, on within business development, very much on innovation. However, they did have an ESG strategy, very clear, focusing on governance, on health and safety, also on human rights and environmental problems. But we found that they kind of were struggling still with their infrastructures and with their business processes, which the reason for that was that they were still recovering from the financial crisis in 2008, like many other companies, and they were kind of trying to recover from that crisis in order to build up their company again and be able to even address the problems that the society has more deeply. And then what we saw in 2021 was that because they built these structures, many projects were already underway. Many of their goals were intensified. So for example, in 2016, they wanted to be carbon neutral by 2050. And then in 2021, they already set the goal back to 2030, which is an improvement and a more intensified goal. Then we were asking ourselves why this difference could appear that clearly. So two things happened. One big thing was that in 2017, Hitachi launched an executive sustainability division, which was able to better address the potential business opportunities connected to investing in the SDGs, and also to talk with stakeholders, with shareholders, to really get what do our stakeholders want, what does society want, how can we align this and address the SDGs within that. And in addition, Hitachi is one of the Japanese companies that's applying the corporate governance code, and they changed some things also within those years so they could be able to focus more precisely on sustainability and SDG. Then onto our quantitative analysis. We chose the three main goals that we kind of saw were important for Hitachi, which is 8, decent work and economic growth, 9, industry, innovation and infrastructure, and 13, climate change. We searched the keywords that you can see here, and the main picture is that the number and the prevalence of these keywords related to the SDGs has increased a lot, which shows that they really address the SDGs more. They're investing in more projects related to them, and they're also focusing their report more on it. So I'm giving back to Tatiana for the conclusion.
I forgot to switch on the microphone again. Let me start the conclusion. As we all know, the 2015 SDGs were presented in 2015, and that fact had a significant impact on alignment of vision, value creation, and ESG strategy for Hitachi and many other companies. Hitachi has transformed its business structure, provided an audit specialized in sustainable development, invested a lot in new social projects, and also introduced its own environmental plan how to achieve carbon neutrality by 2030. And from focus on economic growth and financial results, the company became more, and its IR report became more environmental, society, and stakeholder oriented. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So it seems to me a story of improvement.
Yes. Yes, I think they started, the first report was in 2016, immediately after SDGs were presented. And of course, it was something new for all companies, not only for Hitachi. And it had time to develop, especially during the COVID, because there were a lot of social aspects and they made a lot of improvements also in the field of environmental, society, and technology as well.
Okay, okay, thank you very much, Tatjana. Okay, now group 5, Esselunga, Maggie, non ce l'avevo idea. Simone, Maggie, ok. E Carolina, ok. The other two guys are connected from. One is here, and the fifth there. Hello. Okay, Esselunga. Please put the presentation on. You have always sent news.
Okay, so good morning. Today we are presenting analysis on the Esselunga's report. And if you come from the north or from the center of Italy, you probably know what Esselunga is, but maybe international students do not know about Esselunga. It is basically a retail shop chain, basically a supermarket, and it is widespread in the north and in the center of Italy. It is owned by an Italian family and it was founded in 1957. The first sustainability report of Esselunga came out in 2019 and the second one in 2020. And from here we start with our analysis. In fact, we want to make a comparison between the two. Our research is twofold. On the one hand, we decided to make a comparison between the 2019 and 2020 report in order to see how the major health event that happened in 2020, of course COVID, has had an impact on the GRI, of Esselunga's GRI. So we analyzed how COVID was taken into consideration in Esselunga's GRI. Secondly, we performed a content analysis, and Simone is going to talk to you about the content analysis of Esselunga's 2020 report. So, of course, Esselunga's report is really long. It is more than 200 pages, so we decided to focus just on one aspect, the environmental aspect. And in the report, it is divided into three main pillars: climate change, waste, food waste, and packaging. As regards climate change, the overall goal is almost the same in 2019 and 2020 report, namely the 30% reduction of greenhouse gas emissions. And we can see that from 2018 to 2020, Esselunga managed to reduce the its energy and the emission intensity despite the COVID pandemic. In fact, the COVID pandemic caused an increase, a high increase in the energy demand, but this was offset by the use of renewable resources. So the implementation of new policies and new structures using renewable resources managed to offset this increase in the energy demand. And as you can see from the graph, these are the comparison between the energy used in 2019 and the energy used in 2020, and the difference is between the energy coming from renewable energy and how much Esselunga managed to save. For example, the e-commerce service was fundamental during COVID time, and due to the e-commerce service, Esselunga gave its customers the possibility of doing the grocery shopping online and having it delivered at home. But of course, this caused problems as regards delivery. And Esselunga implemented the use of many completely electrical trucks, 2 in 2019 and 27 in 2020. So this was an implementation and a way Esselunga addressed the COVID pandemic to create value. Then we have food waste and waste management. Overall, again, the overall policy is still the same from 2019 and 2020, but in 2020, Esselunga had to deal with a shift in the preferences of consumers. In fact, buyers used to prefer to buy raw materials instead of ready-made products. For example, as regards the bakery shopping, customers preferred to buy yeast and flour instead of ready-made bread, and it is easily imaginable as we all became bakers during COVID time, I guess. And Esselunga managed to address this problem by reducing the offer of ready-made products and rationalizing the offer of raw materials. So this is a way Esselunga managed to address this possibly arising gap expectation, the performance gap expectation, and a possibly arising public issue. Then we have packaging, and again this was a major problem during COVID time because people prefer to buy packaged products instead of unpackaged products because they were perceived to be safer, for example. But this has to do with concerns about sustainable packaging, and Esselunga in 2019 used the 66% of products packaged in recyclable or compostable materials, whereas in 2020 the firm managed to reach the 93% of products packaged in sustainable packaging. So this is another way Esselunga managed to address this problem and to create value and to speed up the ecological transition thanks to or because of COVID. And then Simone will talk about the content analysis.
Thank you. So, briefly about methodology. We decided a research strategy was a case study. A research approach was inductive, philosophy of science, positivism. We just had one kind of data, which was qualitative, and was the 2020 sustainable report of 2020, and then have the data from content analysis. Basically, just to get one second, we made the choices depending also on each other. For instance, we thought that case study, inductive, and positivism were suited to try to create some insights for future research, but maybe they weren't too much reliable as we just had one record.
I'm following you.
Yes,
You can follow.
Next slide, please.
Okay, just wondering what they say because someone is saying something. Break. I'm not sure about the break. Sorry, because we still have a lot to hear. So how about guys, you just have lunch during the presentation? You know, you can drink, have a bite, but no break, because otherwise we are not going to make it. Okay? So a little bit of effort today. Share the screen. They asked to share the screen. So guys, apologize that I had to interrupt you. We share this because they had that's all right. Okay. Okay, sorry. Sorry, Simone.
No worries. Next
Okay,
slide.
so analysis.
So this is the output of our content analysis. I don't know if you can see the numbers, but basically we had 14 codes through the environmental section of the report. Then, for the categories where we grouped the codes, we decided to use the three main pillars of Esselunga's environmental strategy, where climate change, waste management, and packaging, and as themes, the more abstract category, we decided to use the GRI standards. And
Where did you take these categories?
The codes
Yes.
recorded from the environmental section of Esselunga's record.
Ah.
Yes. And for instance, we have a very large frequency of codes such as circular economy and renewable energy and energy efficiency, which actually is consistent with Esselunga's aim to carbon emissions. But also we see the important role of partnerships, stakeholders, and for instance supply chain in Esselunga's strategy, trying to integrate it also in the environmental aspect. Next slide. So more into technical aspects, we tried to see if the report included the requirements inside each three standards, and we saw, for instance, grid 305 and 6, sorry, 302 energy and 5 emissions very well reported, while 301, 7 and 8 had missing parts. For instance, they always...
In what year?
2020.
On the latest one.
Yes. Yeah, basically, okay. And also 2003 and 2004 were completely missing, but also we saw that they weren't materials. So we also tried to look at existing literature, but there weren't much on supermarkets and reporting, but there was like 5 papers on sustainability strategy in supermarkets, and we actually see that Esselunga with its strategy is pretty much in line with also the competitors, apart from the fact that Esselunga tries to engage more often to customers to have like sustainable strategies together, like planting trees or recycling nappies and recycling water bottles. Thank you.
Okay, guys, thank you. Group 6 Nella.
Sì.
Ah, sì, però io credo che ci voglia questa roba. Infatti prima se io mandato l'email, la presentazione verrà mandata per email e la
perché sì, il 303 completamente ma non è un materiale, quindi solamente
cambiare i capi era stato. Abbiamo condiviso come fossimo online. Allora, se voi siete va benissimo, se siete riusciti io tecnologia è quindi vai, silent, you can eat, drink, do whatever you want, but in silence.
Okay, I'm Benedetta, and with my colleague Lisa, we will present to you our analysis about material assessment in a big reporting system, a case study about Enel. So Enel is an Italian multinational energy company. Its activity is divided in 5 business lines, which concern the generation of electricity from both renewables and traditional sources, the transport and distribution of this energy, and also more value-added services provided to analytics. And the reporting system of Enel is called Core and More, because it is structured in a way that there is a core report, which is the integrated annual report, and more reports, so the financial report, the sustainability report, the governance report, and the remuneration report, which provide more detailed information in compliance with the regulation. So we focus our analysis on the materiality assessment method used by Enel. As a matter of fact, Enel is a company which has multiple impacts, both social, environmental, and economic impacts, and therefore it has multiple obligations toward different stakeholders in different countries. According to the international standard, a company should provide, should report only those topics which are material for the key stakeholders, and should also provide a description of the materiality assessment method that is used to identify these topics. However, sometimes companies, and especially big multinational corporations, use the integrated report by seeking legitimation towards a larger public rather than to a specific stakeholder. And therefore, sometimes the topic disclosed are more driven by a company choice rather than the stakeholder evaluation.
Considering this, we have based our analysis around the three main questions. The first one is what is the materiality assessment method used by the company. Then there is an higher disclosure of information about materiality assessment. And to answer to this question, we have conducted a content analysis considering the GRI 103 standard, which sets out the requirement of reporting the management performance. Finally, we reflect on the quality and the effectiveness of the method by questioning its efficiency in selecting and prioritizing the most silent issue. So the question is, which is the action that the company is going to take to reassure stakeholders. This slide represents the standards and references used by Enel. In fact, we note the GRI 103 standards and the integrated report framework. As an extraction of integrated thinking, the integrated report describes how the company creates value by transforming capital into output, lead to results in terms to effect on capital themselves. Enel describes its business model in a detailed and complete way by providing, as you can see in this graph, different categories based on quantitative data, and the category are people, human capital, the number of employees, the percentage of women in management positions. While in regards to the materiality assessment, our impression is that it doesn't respect the materiality and the stakeholder relationship principle of the integrated framework, and the materiality analysis is described in approximately way, merely mentioning that it is the same as one disclosed in sustainable report. Furthermore, the issue reported in the integrated report were identified by applying a primary issue or a financial community filter on the stakeholders. So our final consideration is that it prioritizes the shareholders over the stakeholders.
So therefore, we have extended our analysis to the sustainability report, where conversely the materiality analysis is described extensively. From a theoretical point of view, we believe that the materiality analysis, the materiality assessment method used by Enel is quite good because it respects the two-dimension of the materiality principle. So it considers both the company impact and both the stakeholder evaluation. And it is divided in 5 different phases. The first, identification of the issues. The second, identification of the stakeholder. The third, which is very important to balance the different opinion of the stakeholder, and involves the assignment of relevance to the stakeholders. According to 3 main criteria, their influence, so their power, their dependence, how much they depend on the business activity, and the urgency. Then the 4th phase concerns the assessment of the stakeholder priorities, and this phase involves some form of stakeholder engagement, especially surveys and interviews. In the 2020, were conducted a customer satisfaction survey, a work from home survey regarding the pandemic crisis, and also a supply survey, and other initiatives to strengthen the relationship with the local communities. The 5th and the final phase concern the assessment of the company positioning on the different issues, and in this case the survey and the interviews are submitted directly to the chairman and the chief of the executive officer. And so, since Enel is a multinational company, this method is replicated by each subsidiary in all the different countries in which the company operates, and then the results are sent to the holding company, to the headquarters, which organize them into realize the group materiality metrics. So this is the 2020 materiality metrics of Enel. It classified the issues in business and governance issues, social issues, and environmental issues. And we can note that along the horizontal axis are placed those issues which are relevant for the stakeholders, while along to the vertical line, those issues which are relevant for the company's goal. So we can see how for the company's goal is particularly relevant to the occupational health and safety and the sound governance and fair corporate conduct. The circular line indicates it's a very reflect this area, indicating that this is the area. The issues that are placed in that area are the material topics we call the 2020. Yes, only in that area, because they are relevant both for the stakeholder and the company and the stakeholder. And we can see how the stakeholder plays more importance on the energy distribution and the decarbonization of the energy. So the company is more focused about the governance, the pandemic crisis, because occupational health is the two priorities, while the stakeholder more on energy decarbonization, so environmental topic. This table shows the results of our content analysis. We have displayed the content analysis only on the materiality assessment disclosure. So we have used as reference the GRI 133 standards, and we can see how the company is really good in respecting the 132 standards, while it doesn't present the same result for the 131 and the 133 standards, because we have found a lack of information in describing how the company evaluates the stakeholder priorities, because it mentioned that it uses some form of stakeholder engagement, such as, for instance, the survey, but it doesn't describe, for instance, how these surveys are conducted and what questions and how the results are managed. So, to conclude, our analysis showed that Enel used a quite good material assessment method, which is good from both a theoretical but also in practice, because it has allowed the company to size the emerging issues also in a tough period such as the pandemic crisis. Therefore, we expect the same efficiency in identifying and prioritize the main issues in 2022. And by considering the latest statement that Enel has made through its Twitter account and in the Italian television broadcast, we believe that it has identified the Ukraine-Russia conflict and the related energy price increase as a material issue for the company, and it has also taken some initiatives such as, for instance, the fundraising, employee fundraising to save the children. And therefore, we believe that in the 2022 sustainability report, the company should describe how it has identified these issues as material, and since there is a conflict of interest that these issues implies in some way, we think that we should provide more evidence, more details about how it has identified these issues, and this is necessary for the reliability and the balance of the information. So these are the reference that we have used under our research, and thanks for your attention.
Okay, laggiù, brava, sì, ok, uguale, e poi schiacciate a sinistra sui candettini, brava, ecco.
Ok, questo.
Devo condividere lo schermo?
Bravissima. Voi siete Ioar 40, Ravasio, Razzivante, Romagnoli e Ruggero.
Sì.
Am I right?
Ok.
Okay. Yes.
Good afternoon, everybody. Sofia and I are here today to present to you the work of our group, which is also composed by Giorgia, Rebecca, and Teresa. The research question on which we base our effort is, does Inditex succeed in creating value for its stakeholders while respecting and actively safeguarding human rights? Inditex is a global retail and distribution company which operates in the fast fashion industry. And it includes 8 diversified brands, among which the most famous are Zara, Pull&Bear, Massimo Dutti. The fast fashion business model rests upon complex supply chains with main stages of the production outsourced in developing countries where the cost of manufacture are lower. The eagerness to pursue profit maximization has often seen fast fashion companies involved in scandals due to the adoption of unethical behaviors and exploitative practices toward local workers and communities. Accordingly, to avoid reputation deterioration, many companies have started integrating the social dimension into their strategies by disclosing information regarding human rights. So why did we choose Inditex? First of all, being present in 88 countries and with such a big number of employees, it is one of the world's leaders in the fast fashion industry. Furthermore, in recent years, the company has deepened its commitment in human rights protection after the adoption of the policy on human rights in 2016. And another relevant reason is that, as you can see from the materiality matrix, both external and internal stakeholders have attributed a very high level of relevance to human rights and related topics. And last but not least, the company has been highly criticized in the past due to scandals occurred in its firms related to human rights and labor rights violations. So, on the basis of all these considerations, we have decided to investigate how the company succeeds in creating a positive value for its stakeholders with a specific focus on its suppliers and local communities. We based our work on the 2020 Inditex annual report, making some references also to past reports. And as concerned the methodology, we adopted both qualitative and quantitative tools to analyze first the international framework and then the policies adopted. So the first part of our work consisted in understanding whether Inditex followed the international framework to draft its annual report. So we analyzed the report, checking the level of compliance to the international framework, making reference both to the guiding principles and the content elements. And after that, we made a qualitative analysis in which we attributed to each of these aspects a judgment going from non-sufficient to good. As we can see from the table, the overall performance of the company can be considered good, as the majority of these aspects were reported in the report. However, we have noticed, with respect to the guiding principle, a consistent lack of completeness in disclosing some negative information relating working conditions and negative effects on communities. After that, we have conducted a content analysis to see whether Inditex respects the GRI standards in creating value for human rights along its supply chain. The coding instrument is formed by 3 main topics, which are human rights, value creation, and safe and healthy environments. We have analyzed the information disclosed by the company with respect to these topics, and then we have verified if the requirements of the GRIs were satisfied or not. As you can see from the last column, in which the indexes, the computed indexes are shown, we have found a quite satisfying level of disclosure about these topics, but not very particular relevant with respect to human rights. In fact, among the most critical aspects that were missing in the report, we have found information regarding the transparency along the supply chain, and also regarding operations that may have negative impacts on local communities. Last consideration is that while many of these statements were present with respect to Western countries, they were not available in developing countries, which are the areas in which, in reality, these social issues are most likely to happen.
So, after investigating whether Inditex had a good level of compliance with the main international reporting frameworks, the GRI and IR, we tried to understand in more detail which policies and strategies they implemented in the field of human rights, and more specifically in the sustainable social management of the supply chain. Because since the supply chain is mostly located in developing countries, that is the area where they could have the most negative impacts, both on the workers in the suppliers' factories and on local communities, in terms of human rights and labor rights violations. And as we have seen in the previous slide, the lack of transparency and lack of disclosure of negative information about scandals, specifically relating to suppliers and local communities, is one of the main weaknesses in their annual report. So their supply chain strategy is based on 3 pillars. The first pillar is increased transparency and traceability in the supply chain, with a specific reference to raw material processing, because that is where most violations tend to occur. Then impose stricter compulsory labor standards for all manufacturers and suppliers, and most importantly, keep checking compliance with these standards, both before establishing a business relationship with the supplier through pre-assessment audits, and for the entire duration of this relationship through social audits. Inditex helps suppliers to comply with these standards through corrective action plans, but if no compliance persists, any relationship with that supplier is interrupted. Finally, the negative impacts on suppliers and local communities are constantly monitored through 12 local direct platforms, also called clusters, where local employees interactively engage with local stakeholders to anticipate and possibly prevent breaches. So in the past 5 years, from 2016 and 2020, they greatly improved their performance in human rights protection. Most of the policies and strategies that I've just mentioned have been strengthened and refined in this period. They also changed the governance structure to reflect the increasing importance given to sustainability and human rights protection. And they promoted a great number of training initiatives for employees to change corporate culture. Then, since they are one of probably the main leader in their sector, they are trying to have a wider positive impact by spreading best practices across the industry, and also by increasing the number of social projects, especially health or education projects for local communities. This effort has been increasingly recognized through various awards by external organizations, among which the WDI Prize for Supply Chain Transparency is the most recent. So we have created these graphs just to show you how both financial and social indicators have had a positive trend in the past 3 to 5 years, except in, of course, 2020, but we know the reason for this. So indicators both for workers, communities, and suppliers all had a tendency to improve in this period. Given these results, we may conclude that Inditex has been overall successful in creating positive social value for the stakeholders, respecting human rights, and that human rights protection has been a precious tool to meet society's expectations. There are still problems, of course, regarding, for example, the completeness of the report, but the answer to our research question is overall positive. However, this conclusion can be easily criticized, especially when we look at different sources of information. We analyzed a number of academic papers underlining how Inditex strategically selected the information to include in the reports to restore its reputation, giving the impression of change without actually changing its way of operating. This can be understood within the framework of impression management theory and also legitimacy theory, because Inditex is trying to maintain its legitimacy to operate in society without actually aligning with public expectations, but only giving the impression to do so and disturbing public perception. This is confirmed by the fact that many scandals have emerged in very recent years, especially regarding serious human rights violations in China and in Brazil, as I said before. But no information about this has been disclosed or included in the report. We also analyzed H&M very briefly, just to see if the main competitor for Inditex had a better performance, because in theory it had a greater expertise in managing global supply chains, but actually the two cases were very similar. So they implemented similar strategies. They were very good on paper in human rights reporting, but there seemed to be a gap between theory and action for both companies. Therefore, Therefore, we may conclude that great progress has been made, but the fast fashion industry needs to cooperate to develop more effective policies and more realistic and action-oriented forms of disclosure to ensure that the respect for human rights is not just another management strategy, but a way to create real value for all the stakeholders. So this is our just a couple of references, and thank you for your attention.
Dobbiamo prendere one of our weeks that is online.
Sì,
We have to make her
sì. What's her name?
Nihan.
Allora,
The girl, she just raised the end.
però aspetta, no, non so cos'è sta cosa qui. Devo andare su Niang. Allora, Niang deve essere qui, Twill, sì.
Yes.
Ok, allora, in questo come relatore. Niang,
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
you are the speaker now, and you can see the screen, okay?
Thank you.
You are welcome. Inteso Carlo? Yes. There is 5 of you, right? Yes. 5. Okay. Good.
Just waiting for my colleague to share the presentation. Then we can start.
Sorry, I just have to accept something.
Meanwhile, we are waiting with reference the mark of these groups. I am optimistic that they will be really soon. Not tomorrow, probably, because it takes a little bit of time, but soon anyway. So before your exam.
Sorry. Yeah, I have. My problem is that I have to accept something, and it's gonna quit my team, and then I have to come back.
Ah, okay.
Be able to share my screen.
How long do you think you'll be?
Like 30 seconds.
Okay, perfect.
That's all right. We didn't have the break, so we have a little bit.
Yeah, all right. Okay.
That's all right. So while we are waiting, just a feedback from you. Do you think that it is worth to undertake a working group like that, and that to be part of the final evaluation, or not?
I quite liked it.
You enjoyed that?
Yeah, I think it was useful.
Okay, now you are here anyway. So. No, I'm joking. Guys, did you enjoy or would you have preferred just
I think it was quite useful. Maybe have some more like official
official?
Like an official report, I don't know, similar to what we are doing. I mean, that they do exist and you do find them, but I don't know, I would have, it was useful in order to understand more clearly what we were doing, but at the same time, sometimes I was a bit
lost.
Yes.
Yeah.
So what? So to improve, what would you suggest?
I don't, yeah, like some simulation also done by you that is of a higher level with respect to what we.
Okay. I was hoping that, for example, the presentation of the other week would be very useful. The guys that came in the class to present the case study. So I thought that, you know, to see what they have done in practice could be very useful, and Susanna's presentation could be very useful to this end. Instead, you suggest to do a proper simulation of a case study or a demo to work, a working group, let's say. So
I personally would have, I mean... Because
probably you felt too much flexibility in order to find the question, the methods to use, the papers to analyze. Even if I suggest, I gave you a list of many things to look at, maybe you find yourself lost in that.
Yeah, slightly.
Okay. Okay, good. Thank you very much.
Well.
Other suggestions while we are still...
Because I was thinking that for some of us, it was the first time we saw all these annual reports and all these frameworks. So maybe having seen them one time or once before, it would have been easier to know where to look for some things at the time.
So say again, what would you suggest to make it
to read maybe one entire, to take one entire annual report and see, okay, you can see that what we have studied about this is recorded here.
To match
so
the guidelines with the report.
Exactly. Okay. Also what we have done during the...
Okay.
Oh yeah, over here.
Any other insight? Maybe next year I can ask one of you to come in my class and present your case study of this year to give an example of to my new students, which will be different from me. I'm joking, you're all good. So what is going on here?
I think we are almost there, but
yeah.
Niad,
you need to share the tab with the PowerPoint, please. I think you're just showing your...
what are you seeing right now?
Us, like
the participant
me and you.
And now what are you seeing?
Nothing.
Are you seeing the PowerPoint?
No.
Not the presentation.
But that is your desk, so this is already...
Yeah.
Okay, that's weird.
Okay, guys, you don't have the mask, so you need to be a little bit... no, it's the opposite.
Okay, sorry. But if you can't, Niad, we're just gonna do that.
Okay, that's really strange.
Maybe you just have to close a window. I don't really know.
Okay, while we are waiting, and maybe just for the people that were waiting yesterday in class, do you think that the exercise that we have undertaken yesterday will be part of the exam?
I do not. Your desktop?
Did you enjoy that, first of all, for the people that were there? And do you think that that could be part of the exam evaluation? maybe with some kind of previous preparation for that, like more preparation. Yeah, I mean, I don't know.
Yesterday was the first time, so we took time to
now.
and
No, we see just a black screen.
For an evaluation as
But it's already
with
just a black screen.
Like, just maybe knowing all the steps, being able to
I opened the Google PowerPoint.
Okay.
It's open.
No, okay, so you can't really. It's not working.
I'm sorry.
Like, steps. I got it. I would say maybe to know step before, to know the step
Puoi andare più avanti con il taglio.
Sì.
Okay, we're dealing with that, Niad.
I'm so sorry.
Oh, don't worry at all.
I think it must be Apple.
I must be in che senso? Must be.
So I'm trying to put, maybe after we will fit blank numbers ourselves.
Being able to prepare for business skill, like this is part of an exam that we can do that. Because otherwise, yes, what you say, we also have to think about the anxiety aspect of having to do something that is going to be evaluated. Because yesterday we were still relaxed while doing it because we knew it was an attempt. It was just okay. Yeah, but if I think about doing what I did yesterday, but with the anxiety of knowing that's a part of the exam and not knowing really what to do, I think I would have not performed. Okay. So you said mostly yesterday. Yeah, you told her. And also everything that we did was taken to us.
Siamo proiettati, quindi perfetto. Così subito mi spiace.
During the accountability too many, and I don't know, thinking about what I had learned on that day. So still not, it's not lots of time doing it without being part of the exam. Other insight. Oh, so we have the thing here.
Yeah.
Anyway, other insight from yesterday that you would like to tell me now? Okay. Guys, thanks. And
Okay, so
go ahead.
Okay, so good afternoon, everybody. I'm Rosita, and with you, I'm going to present you our analysis on Intesa Sanpaolo integrated reports. We are from Group 8, that also involves Vania, Eduardo, and Riccardo. So next slide, please. This is the content that we are going to talk about. And first of all, we start with the organization. So Intesa Sanpaolo is the largest bank in Italy with over 1 billion assets managed, but it also has a strong international presence, collecting more than 7 million foreign customers. Regarding a sustainability perspective, we can say that Intesa Sanpaolo Group has a relative long history in sustainability effort. It started in 2003 with issuing voluntary sustainable reports and just later on adopting the integrated report framework. So this long-term commitment in sustainability has been recognized by international authorities and allowed the group to be, for example, the next slide, please. Sorry. Oh, no, sorry, that one. Sorry. So, for example, allowed the group to be the only Italian bank to have been included in the Dow Jones Sustainability World Index. And in 2001, the group was included also in the leadership band of a carbon disclosure project with an A- score.
You go ahead.
Of course. So our analysis is based. Right, sorry. Thank you. Okay.
No, you go ahead.
Okay, so our analysis is based on environmental capital, and in order to do so, we defined the following research questions that you will see in a second.
Now user is down here.
So I will read the research questions. The research question is, how does Intesa Sanpaolo create environmental value? Did they increase their performance in terms of reporting sustainability growth and non-financial disclosure in the last 5 years? And are the findings consistent with the GRI 300 standard? Our tools that we used in the analysis was the section called Environmental and Climate Change of non-financial statements from the last 5 years, so 2015-2020 time period, and then a content analysis based on GRI standards. So the first thing that we did is was a comparison between the last 5 years reports. Then the methodology that on which we build our content analysis is based on the following step. First of all, we have the selection of the content to analyze that, as I said before, is the non-financial statement regarding environmental impact. Then we defined the categories and the units that we wanted to use. The categories are related to each of the GRI 300 standards, so materials, energy consumption, water and drainage, emissions and waste. So they are referring to GRI 301 to 306. And the unit that we use is the word. So we use the keywords like energy consumption, GRI, and so on to observe the frequency of the topics related to each of these categories. And then we developed, of course, a set of rules for coding. And for each of the GRI categories, we can say we marked 1 if the related topics were present, 0 if they were absent, or we used no significant data if the information provided were not enough. Then we scanned the text using these rules that we adopted, and we gathered all the information within a table that you will see later. And the last step is analyze the result and draw conclusion. We did that, and then we have the descriptive parts in order to enhance the content analysis and to better understand which was the improvement in this 5 years period. And then we went to the findings, of course, that my mate will tell you.
Thank you. So next slide, please. So overall, in the 5 years, we see a 10% increase in adoption of GRI 300 standards. So each report adds on to a new, or adds on new guidelines from those standards there each year. Next slide. The section on environmental and climate change was split into sort of 3 main categories. So the green economy and the circular economy were related to the financial products that were on offer to assist in their environmental efforts. So for the green economy, this mainly came out in the form of green mortgages available to, green mortgages coming in from the retail sector. We saw which amounted to 46% of the overall investments for 2020. There's a significant increase, over 1,500% between 2019 and 2020 in the uptake of these green mortgages, and that is primarily because the Italian government became the guarantor for individuals who were interested in these mortgages. In terms of the circular economy, they are very active, and this is the core part of their environmental focus, I guess, from a financial standpoint, in promoting circular economic activity. So they've set up an innovation centre and an economy lab, which assist entrepreneurs and businesses with engaging in investment opportunities, setting up their business to participate, in the green economy. Okay, they also have worked quite heavily with the Ellen MacArthur Foundation. I think that's been since about 2016, and they've set up a dedicated fund of €6 billion to support this transition. Next slide, please. So another element of their financial products is the green bonds. So they were the first Italian bank to introduce these green bonds in 2017, worth up to €500 million, and they are funding currently 76 projects from this fund. In terms of resource management, this is to do more with their daily operations as a bank. So we can see that they started reducing the tonnage and the paper used year on year. As we can see, COVID-19 has obviously significantly impacted that with a 53% decrease since 2015. Also, we see a decrease in the water consumption year on year and also their waste. So next slide, please. So relating to the methodology that Ross just described, this is to do with their daily operations. So we can see, as expected, there's a keen focus since 2015 on their energy usage and their emissions from the daily operations, but not so much on the water and waste front. That is because as a financial business, they're not really producing any concrete products that we can physically use. So there's very little waste apart from the paper, and very little water used apart from their offices. So next slide, please. As we can see as well, in these materiality matrices, we can see that from 2015, which is the top left, you can see that the climate change is fairly middling in the report. So it's of medium importance to both their stakeholders and the bank at that time. Moving on to 2020, which is the lower chart, we can see that they've started diversifying the idea of climate change into a transition to a sustainable green and circular economy. And they've also, which is up in the very top corner of the matrices there, if you can see it. And then also they've mentioned a direct environmental impact, which is still quite low, but it's of increasing importance to the stakeholders as well. So next slide, please. So some critiques here. So there's some unclear behaviour related to the indirect risks, environmental risks due to their activities. So this is looking at their investment portfolio, seeing how much of that is actually going into environmentally damaging behaviours. There's very little reporting on that. Secondly, there's no clear GRI standards on financial products related to green financial products. In essence, there are some that look at the indirect economic activities in the GRI sort of 200 range, but there's nothing specifically related to financial products. And then secondly, thirdly, there's a lack of connection between the environmental section of the IR and their investments in fossil fuels, etc. To conclude, we've got some 3 positive points. Overall, the quality of the disclosure in regards to the GRI 300 standards was quite high. We can see that, obviously they've implemented more and more of these standards year on year over the last 5 years. And since 2018, they've particularly focused on promoting a circular economy by establishing separate divisions and key partnerships in that area. Room for improvement. There needs to be a greater effort in promoting their green financial products for retail customers. Once the government subsidies end, there's no plans that have been outlined to carry on that product. So they need to figure out how to do that. And then finally, they need to do a bit more in terms of promoting their actual financial activities within the fossil fuel industry. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Last slide.
The conclusion.
Yes. What does it mean? The circular economy increase from 0 to 4.
I know, sorry. You want to? It's just the connections. I think that they add with the.
They have more partnership since
Sorry?
more partnership in order to like invest in startups and do more initiatives towards circularity.
So that this thing from 0 to 4 is something that you indicate.
Yes.
I know.
Because of course, the last 5 year reference, we saw that there was a change in the amount of investing in that particular topic.
It can be considered 2018 can be considered as a change year towards circularity because it was more important for the ESP.
Okay.
But it's everything.
9. Tremuli, Panacore, lezioni, siete voi, Il report e la presentazione. Ok, perfetto. Coca-Cola.
Facciamo modo, però facciamoci così al Allora torno dietro. Questo prossimo intero. Ok. Poi basta fare il I think yes.
Okay, perfect. This is yours.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. Today I'm here for presenting my group work that I prepared together with Federica Manacore, Loco Vestilli, Ilaria Bocchiaro, and Chiara Gotta. We are going to talk about the relationship between Coca-Cola and the natural capital. So first, I'm going to introduce you the organization, even if I think that most of you know Coca-Cola. Then I'm going to explain why we chose this topic, so how Coca-Cola manages natural capital. Third, I'm going to explain the method we use, and a spoiler, we use the content analysis method. As fourth, we present our findings and our criticism, and last but not least, the conclusion and the references. So first, the Coca-Cola organization, the Coca-Cola company is one of the global leader in producing bottling and distributing this soft drink, and it works in more than 200 countries. So, for the business, it's very important the relationship with its stakeholders, so customers, shareholders, employees, and bottling partners. What is very important for the business is also that it is decentralized in 5 sections. So, because it operates in Africa, Eurasia, Latin America, European Union, the Pacific, and the North America. And in this way, the company has the possibility to be really focused on the legislation of the places, of the 5 different sections, and be on the cutting edge for what concerns the development of ad hoc solutions for whatever issue comes out. Coca-Cola prepared a plan for the 2025 mission, which is based on the UN SDGs, and the company showed really a lot of commitment for what concerns the environment. So these are a few data about Coca-Cola system in general. And this table, among all, is the comparison between the 2025 commitment and the situation of the company nowadays. And when talking in the documents, Coca-Cola is really confident by reaching these very ambitious goals. And this is a brief plan that regards packaging and water, which are going to be the focus of our work when talking about natural capital. We are going to see this in a few minutes. Yes, natural capital. Why natural capital? Because we chose this topic because sustainability is our current issue, and our investigations, but not just ours, show that Coca-Cola has a really ambiguous relation with natural capital, because it seems like on one side the company wants to protect it, but on the other side there's some proof that it is not really the reality. But we're going to move further on this point. This is a brief graphic of the portfolio of Coca-Cola, just to explain that really, they have a lot of different drinks, soft drinks, and different soft drinks also require different packaging, different materials, and so on. So next, okay, the method we adopted is content analysis. We started with the Coca-Cola 2020 IR report and other non-financial documents. We stuck to the IR framework guidelines, and we work also with the GRI regulations. For what concerns the content analysis, we use this method in order to look for a specific keyword and then find all the notions we needed to use for our work. And I think this method was really useful for time sparing. As a matter of fact, we were quite brilliant in time management under this point of view. This is the part of our findings. The first part is regarding packaging. First, we discovered that, according to the Coca-Cola point of view, the company used those raw materials, so glass, aluminum, PET resin, and paper. The company showed a lot of commitment towards the environment, and as a matter of fact, has several initiatives with the stakeholders, and in particular the suppliers. And the company think it is very important to keep in touch with them so closely, because they every time they meet, physically and not physically, they share a lot of notions about technology and innovative notions, because they aim to develop a lighter package, and a package that contains less plastic and more biodegradable materials. So, wait a minute. Yeah, and Coca-Cola is aware of the fact that the company cannot afford, let's say, damages in the reputation, because the credibility is really important for Coca-Cola for what concerns the operating licenses. And when Coca-Cola has difficulties with licenses, the cost of the business will increase, and there's a consequently loss of the consumer base. So really great damage for the company. Next, please. Okay, this is water. Water is very important for Coca-Cola business. 93% of water is used in the supply chain, in particular 92% for agricultural purpose and 1% for packaging. The other 7% is for manufacturing, distribution, cooling, and dispensing. The company forecasts that through time, the following years, the business will grow a lot, and consequently, also the need of water will increase. And this is a problem on one point of view. But on the other side, Coca-Cola affirms that they are really focused on making the process more efficient. And they're trying new solutions, new methods also to recycle water, which can be a really winning strategy for their development, for the further development. Yes, and what we found very interesting is the specific citation of 25 critical sites, geographical sites, where the company has some facilities located there, and those facilities, they state, to be exposed to water risks with a potential to have a substantive financial or strategic impact on the business. Those are a few graphs about percentage of improvement in water efficiency since 2010, and this is about the water that Coca-Cola used for producing the soft drink that came back to nature and to the communities. This is about incoherence. We found out because despite its commitment, the commitment of the company, Coca-Cola is ranked in first position as global polluter, and those are few data about the CO2 emissions when burning Coca-Cola plastics. And we put the materiality matrix in this slide because we wanted to show the contrast between the Coca-Cola's commitment and what is the reality. So packaging is here, and water is I think here. I can read it. It's here. This one. So our conclusion and suggestions are the following. So since there are some missing information, because we weren't really able to find each stage we were looking for, we would suggest Coca-Cola to be more complete when preparing the reports. Then some records and documents were really difficult to find. I mean, they exist because we were able to find them, but we recognize that it could be more easier for us to have access to this to them. And so it is about being more transparent. And then the third and fourth point is about the incoherence we were talking about. So there is difference between reality and what Coca-Cola says. Coca-Cola should act in a more socially responsible manner and be more transparent, also being more responsible for the damages the company creates. So these are our references, and we thank you for your attention, and we are looking forward to answer any of your questions.
Okay, guys, thank you very much. Okay, so you were group 9.
Yes.
So now it's time of group 10.
No.
Oops.
What is this?
Scusi.
Non so cosa sto facendo. Tornata? Non è andata via. Oh sì, devi andare dritta oggi. Allora, direi di chiudere a dopo.
Ok.
Questo è un PDF?
Sì, sì.
Allora bisogna scorrere
sì, no, no, facciamo così. È colpa mia, perché aspetta, sa come metterlo sul screen?
Puoi semplicemente scorrere giù, invece di fare il via, scorri un po' in giù e cambi le pagine.
Ok. Ok, sì, si preleva.
Allora, vediamo.
Vabbè, ok.
Prego.
Right. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. So we're Group 10 for the auditing project, and so the company we talk about is Amazon. I'm Aaron, and we've got Sophie, Johan, Sylvia, Rashad over there, and Zilia's online. Yeah, that's it. So, quick overview of what Amazon is. Obviously, everyone knows it is an e-commerce giant selling, internet-based goods, through which most of the stuff that you own at the minute is you must have got it from Amazon. And at the minute, what they're doing now in terms of sustainability is more towards being net zero carbon emission by 2040 and or carrying operations 100% of it by renewable energy in 2025. Hence why you see all the delivery vans running on nothing but electricity. However, with our research question, we decided to have a look at a different aspect, which is how Amazon addresses the criticism regarding the exploitation of workers, minimum wages, and bad working conditions in their reports. With the material that we used the 2020 report and some external articles from the same year. So, with our analysis, as I said earlier, the internal document is what Amazon said themselves in their report in 2020, but at the same time we looked at external documents from articles, papers, and with the indicators we're using, we're going for strategy and analysis to understand what can be improved for Amazon and what can they do to make themselves more of a sustainable company in the future. Some of the critics that we received here, so the top statements are all from the report themselves, talking about the respect of freedom of association, that the employees right to join or to have a labour union, or tolerate the use, not tolerate the use of child labour, forced labour, anything like that, and also the well-being. However, with the reality that we found out with the articles, which are referenced in the report, our report, is the fact that they are hiring and recruiting intelligent analysts to track and prevent any threats of being organising to give themselves a bad name. With the forced labour, there's a scandal going on in China with Uyghurs. Don't know how to pronounce that. Excuse me for that. But basically just being put into forced labour to work in the Chinese department of Amazon. And then also with the reopening of crash work, this statement actually comes from an article from workers in Chicago, in America, the more economically developed countries. It just shows how this sort of shows like the real side of Amazon, even though they try to market themselves that they're not. So what we've done here for our analysis is the force field analysis with some numerical data. So the numerical data comes from we've gone with a +2 or -2 situation, a +1 being, the plus being the positives, which is on the driving forces, the positive sides, showing how Amazon show themselves and how they can seem that they are doing a good job towards their reports and their sustainability on the human side. However, on the other side of the restraining forces, which also have the -2, which basically intensifies that how bad the situation it can be. And obviously each of them link with each other, which allow us to make the solution that we have in the middle. So for example, in our reports, we found out that Amazon classed themselves as the most customer-centric company on earth, which obviously they take into account customers are nothing more than people, and it's basically the backbone of their business. However, you've got to link that with customer orientation. Customers don't just want a product and service, but they also would like to have an experience to make them ensure that they will continue to be a stakeholder towards Amazon. And obviously, if that's not the case for the most customer-centric company on earth, it could also lead to other stakeholders just losing interest. The other one I had was the 5 areas key towards inclusivity, workers' inclusivity. However, with the report themselves, we found out that actually, in the report, they're kind of marketing the business as we're very nice and very charitable by focusing more towards on lower economically developed countries. By I think one example we found was talking about a Bengali helpline that they managed to invest and set up towards, basically a helpline to call about poor working conditions and things like that. However, it contradicts with the last statement I was mentioning because we found another article of the workers in Chicago, so they're being overworked. Our next one was focusing aims on employee protection. However, as we said, the tracking and preventing unions organising is quite a big thing. The fact that Amazon are intending to recruit organisations like this to prevent this from happening, to try and make them stay in place. Another one we had was responding to unprecedented events in supply chain. One thing we found out was during this is 2020 report, so we were talking about COVID-19, the heavy pandemic, and it was just talking about they were able to give like disinfectants and any sort of sanitary products that would help with it. However, again, they're hiding on statements for slave labour, as we mentioned in the previous report. And the final ones were employees ensure that they will receive basic needs, food, water, shelter. They're investing in those kind of funds, like the Housing Equity Fund. However, just because they say they can only offer basic needs, they can't offer anything higher up. For example, in the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, because they can just offer poor working conditions, but still say, well, we've given them their basic needs. However, so with all this, we decided to make a change where, when they actually do the reports, we should get a third party to approve their reports, even though Amazon is a big company and they have all the money, more than all the money in the world to do whatever they want to. It will help benefit them towards stakeholders' confidence, which includes investors, employees, every other stakeholder you can imagine in an Amazon umbrella, and improve their credibility.
Did they ask to get the report checked or is
We tried to look for that. We haven't had anything about that. It almost seems like they just sort of validate it themselves, just because they can. And in conclusion,
Yes, excuse me.
so yeah, in conclusion, basically just avoid. We should take some time to focus more on the human side of things, which obviously can cause a detrimental effect towards Amazon, as we stated before. What they're doing with sustainable energy, all that stuff, that's perfect, but they're doing exactly that, but they need to focus on another side, which is the human side, which is really about human capital. And that way, Amazon can still be able to save face and keep the stakeholders' confidence. And that is it. Thank you for listening. That's the last slide.
good? Well done, guys. Very interesting. Thank you very much.
Professor, Group 11 will present from Teams directly.
Faccio così. Niente. Allora, questi sono tutti 10, no? No, 9. Eravamo 10, sì. Yes. Sì.
Okay.
Okay, group 11.
Yeah, we are here. I need that the permission to share my screen.
Yes. Immediately. Mommy. Someone has left a mask. Probably you need a mask. Mask.
The mask was before group 9.
Group 9. Someone.
9 has the mask before.
I don't know. So if someone is missing a mask, we have a mask. So who is speaking?
Me with my.
Maria.
Yeah.
Maria. Maria, dove sei? Perché non ti vedo? Petra o Maria?
She will present, I will speak.
So, who is going?
Maria.
You, Petra.
Maria is going to do the presentation. I'm just going to speak.
Manage the presentation, ok. Ok. Ah, eccola, Maria Teresa. Okay, now she's co-speaker. Maria, you should be able to share.
Yeah, 1 second.
So, for group 11, you are all connected from home, am I right?
Yes.
Okay. Are you ready to start?
1 second.
Yes.
Professor, in the meanwhile, can I ask you to switch off your mic when I start? Because otherwise it's kind of...
I switch off my microphone. Okay.
Thank you very much. Now just wait for Maria.
Yeah, I had some trouble with privacy.
Can you do it, Maria? Otherwise, I will.
No, if you can, because my privacy is down.
Yeah, I will. I only need the possibility to share.
Allora, Petra Maldore. Imposta come rettore. Cambia.
Okay. Okay. Can everybody see it?
Yeah, we can.
Great. So I can start. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Petra, and I will briefly present you the findings of our analysis. So my group is formed by me, of course, Merdad, Denise, Maria, and Gisem. This is the roadmap of our presentation. I will briefly introduce the company chosen for this analysis and also explain the reason behind this choice. Then I will explain what our research is about and how we conducted it. And then I will introduce the findings we obtained with also some comments and, of course, our conclusion. So the company we choose is known as Cobalco, or also Kobe Steel Group, which is a Japanese company with a long history since it was founded in 1905. It offers products and technologies about what concern iron, steel, aluminium, and copper, also construction machinery, and since 2000, also electric power worldwide. We decided to look at this company report since in 2017, an important misconduct was discovered. So the company had released falsified data regarding the quality of its aluminium, steel, and copper products for years. So nearly 600 clients of the company were affected by those falsified specifications. So after they reported the misconduct, they also committed to more transparency towards stakeholders to avoid the recurring of such misbehavior. And so they started to produce integrated report from 2018. So our research question is, which is the ethical stance of the group after the reported misconduct? So we decided to analyze how Cobalco changed or improved its ethical stance. To examine these issues, we used a longitudinal analysis. So we conducted a retrospective study. So we compared and we examined the previous data from the sustainability report issued in 2017, and we compared them to the data on the integrated report of 2018 for what concerned ethics. So our research specifically focused on what changes the company made to its ethical safeguards to improve the corporate culture and whether those changes were actually successful or not. So, of course, multiple changes were fostered by the company in the 2008 integrated report after the scandal. We will just focus on the different ethical safeguards in place in 2017 and then later in 2018. So 5 are the main components which actually constitute the safeguards. So the first one is about ethical policies and codes. In 2000, the company already formulated a corporate code of ethics in which are set forth the standards which Kobe will comply. Then in the 2017 sustainability report, the company only mentioned the principles and standards, but they only list them. So the group did not disclose any information about how those principles are actually presided in everyday work. Neither they showed some effort in connecting them with the stakeholder. So actually the overall perception is that the company has never put really into practice the values that itself has defined, also in the 2018 integrated report. The second, ethical safeguards, is about training program. So even if the 2018 integrated report represents a crucial step towards human research program for Cobelco, since for the first time we see a section of the company annual report dedicated to its employees, there are no trainings aimed at strengthening those ethical values among the employees, neither in 2017 nor in the 2018 reports. The third one is about top management commitment. So as stated by the CEO letter in the 2018 report, the main goal of the company is to regain the trust of all stakeholders and also to ensure that the reforms needed are made with a kind of sense of urgency. So to show their actual commitment, the management system underwent a substantial reform from the 2017 organization. The first thing that changes that we find a division of the figures of the chairman of the board and director and the CEO. So the chairman is now an independent director from outside the company. The second change is that the board of directors is now composed of 15 directors, of which 5 independents, while until 2017 they do not have any set number for external directors. The third and last one is that the general meetings of shareholder also appoint an audit and supervisory committee, while until 2017 was directly the board of directors who appointed them. The fourth safeguards is about compliance officers. So a new compliance management department has been established on the 1st of April of 2018. This was already mentioned in the 2017 sustainability report, but with a substantial difference regarding their duties. So the committee in 2018 submits report and recommendation on the necessary actions to the board of directors, while in 2017 the committee had only the duty to organize seminars for the top management, while the employees only received the compliance manual of the company. The fifth mechanism is about safeguards is about reporting mechanism. So the firm has an internal reporting mechanism called whistleblowing, under which every employee can report violation of the code of ethics to an independent outside attorneys. But unfortunately, there has not been any implementation of this mechanism from 2017 to 2018. The last element that we analyzed is actually about assurance and auditing. So this does form part of the safeguards, but of course help with the scope of transparency towards stakeholder that Cobelco set for. So the audit and supervisory committee of Cobesteel consists of 5 members. They also have an accounting external audit in place, but also in this case, the system has not undergone any reform after the scandal, and there is no evidence of external auditing conducted on the integrated report. So to have a clear benchmark on which we could rely on to analyze the actual effectiveness of Cobelco's program, we use the elements described by the Ethics Research Center. So they are based on a research conducted on the state of ethics in large companies. And after this research, they convened that successful ethics and compliance.
You still have 2 minutes.
Okay, I'm almost done, no problem. And so they convened that a successful comprehensive ethics and compliance program must include at least those 6 key elements. So written standards of ethical conduct, training on standards, resources that provide advice about ethics issues, a mean to report violation anonymously, performance evaluation of ethical conduct, and the system to discipline violators. Cobelco has clear standards of ethical conduct, internal reporting system, and the compliance officer in place, while we're still missing performance evaluation and ethical conduct trainings, and also a clear system to discipline violators. So, in this specific case, Cobelco committed only superficially to the restoration of its core values. They mentioned ethics and transparency several times, but even after the misconduct, they do not implement quantifiable measure aimed at preventing some future mislead. So Cobelco had better to focus on ways to check on its employees' understanding, while just without only listing them. So they really need some program that can check the effectiveness of the program. Also, the second thing is that from a non-critical eye, Cobelco could seem a company with a strong corporate governance in place. Despite that, it does not have any tool to accurately measure it. So here you can find some suggestion of the indexes that we could use to actually analyze it. And the third and last conclusion is that the COBE's corporate code of ethics and also the following standard section has never been upgraded, so this leads to obsolescence. Okay, those are the references we used for our presentation. I hope everything is clear, and thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Petra. Well done.
Thank you.
Now, group 12.
I'm not from group 12. These are the reports.
Thank you. They are all connected from home. Okay.
Yes.
Technologies. Guys, who is this?
Good afternoon, Professor. Could you enable me to share the screen, please?
Yes, of course.
Gianvi.
Allora. Metti in posta come relatore. Ok, hi.
Hello.
Hi, Carmen. Now you are co-speaker, so you can, you are in charge. Okay?
I hope you can see our presentation on the screen.
One moment. At the moment not. Yes, none. Okay, I switch off my microphone.
Perfect. Is it a full screen, Professor? Okay. Go for man. Okay.
Grazie.
Hi.
Okay, it's a full screen.
Hi. I'm going to start about SNAM. SNAM is an energy company founded in 1941 in San Donato, Milanese, that operates in the construction of pipelines and gas distribution as of date in Europe for gas storage, transportation, and also regasification. Following Europe's commitment to reaching net zero emissions, SNAM is a member of the Clean Hydrogen Alliance, which aims at the transportation of entirely decarbonized gas, hydrogen, and biomethane. Moreover, in 2019, SNAM was already the first European energy company to inject a mix of 5% of hydrogen and natural gas into its transmission network. Since 2011, SNAM has taken actions to sustainability following the shared value approach proposed by Michael Porter and Mark Kramer, seeking to generate value and build relationships with both financial and non-financial stakeholders. This paper seeks to analyze SNAM's integrated reports of 2019 and 2020 to identify the evolution and change in the company's approach to value creation for stakeholders using the IR framework. Particularly, the research focuses on the materiality matrix and seeks to consider the change between the pre-pandemic and pandemic years. Furthermore, in 2021, SNAM's integrated report was awarded the so-called Oscar di Bilancio, the Italian Oscar of financial statements, where it was lauded for the clear, readable, and reflecting the most innovative standards of reporting with reference to both financial and non-financial aspects. Analysis. The primary focus of the analysis is the materiality matrix of corporate social responsibility. This approach provides evidence of what is important to stakeholders and promotes meaningful corporate disclosure or central to the global reporting initiative. This is a key topic that defines the prioritization of issues and strategic planning that forms the sustainability efforts and reporting by the company. SNAM's organizational performance can be better understood by comparing the company's efforts in 2019 and 2020. Method. SNAM uses peer analysis in the creation of materiality analysis within the sustainability reports. It's done by reaching stakeholders through interviews with the management, conducting survey questionnaires, and also materiality workshops that involve representatives from customers, supplier, and employee groups. This methodology evaluates which issues are material or significant to an industry overall and to specific business. Through this process, management prioritizes and disclosure policies are set. Now I want to give speech to my groupmate. John, please. Your microphone.
Yes. While we conducted a content analysis of both the sustainability reports from 2019 and 2020, we noted that SNAM uses various analyzing approaches to build a comprehensive report. As you can see them listed here, I would like to highlight particularly the benchmark analysis used in 2019, in which SNAM would compare with other companies a set number of standards to analyze performance and make improvements to the performances. In 2020, another interesting aspect of risk analysis can be used, which is particularly important due to the pandemic. SNAM analyzes and assesses which are the factors that could in the future negatively affect its sector. So we wanted to show this in addition to our content analysis. We decided to focus on the materiality matrix that SNAM uses to identify the important elements. As you can see, climate change is important to both SNAM and its stakeholders, so is health and safety in 2019. However, factors like brand reputation are only important to the company, but not as relevant to the stakeholders. We found it interesting to note how the company acknowledges the stakeholders in putting parameters like climate change and health and safety, but it also includes parameters relevant to the company itself, such as brand reputation and relationships with the authorities. In construction and distribution businesses, the relationships with the authorities proved to be particularly important. The matrix was pretty similar also in 2020. However, health and safety increased in importance, of course, due to the pandemic. Climate change also was significant because, as expected, as the research suggested that carbon dioxide emissions would be reduced due to the post-pandemic and ongoing pandemic results. But it wasn't so due to the economic activity being started out at the later half of 2020. The firm decided to put brand reputation out of this materiality metrics, which is interesting to note how the company decided to honor the stakeholders instead, since it had already been having ongoing procedures to establish brand reputation in the previous years. Another thing that SNAM does, it changes the format of the sustainability reports. For example, in 2020 decided to communicate way more about its participation in global climate change initiatives and also in its commitment to go zero carbon by 2030. We found out in our conclusions, we conducted a parallel analysis with a similar company, Enel. As most of you would know, Enel is a large distributor of gas and electricity in Italy. As it is similar to SNAM in many ways, we found out that the materiality metrics was very similar in both the companies with regards to climate change and health and safety. But SNAM decides to focus more on health and safety and gives relevance to more present factors. It is interesting to note how similar companies have similar matrices. So how is it that EU law affects the disclosure? How about if all the companies decide to disclose very similar information? We found out that there could be improvement in third-party interventions of analyzing the factors of materiality matrices in both the companies. And we concluded that similar companies have similar importance and significance level. And with this, we come to the conclusion of our research. Here are the references that we have used. And thank you for your attention. If any questions, we would be happy to answer.
Okay, can I see the other guys that were in your group? I think you are all connected from home. Oh, hello. Nice. Hello.
Hello. Good morning.
Four has spoken earlier. We need other two people. Five. Hi.
And Professor, there is Anar. I don't think maybe he's having some technical problems.
Okay, that's all right. Okay, just to see who were, the people of the group. Okay, thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, Professor.
Anar will turn on camera in 1 minute. He just can't because he has technical problems.
Oh, yes, right. Okay. Okay, guys, it's 3:05, so I would say that the unit for today is over. It was a pleasure to have you as students, and now we are going to see each other hopefully only on the 4th of April, okay? Hopefully, I'm pretty sure. So I will see you in about 2 weeks, okay? And thank you very much for your contribution today. You Bye guys at home.
Thank you, bye. Bye, thank you.
La mascherina?
Sì, scusi, l'ho lasciata qui, ero un pochino agitata e me lo sono scordata. Arrivederci.
Ciao, prof.
Abbandono.